A safety manager once told me that I reminded him of a sitcom character. Not because of anything that I said, because of what I didn't do. Years later, I watched a brand new leader lose an entire room for doing exactly the opposite. One man had it, the other one did not. Two completely different outcomes. Today, we're going to talk about why calm isn't about your situation. It's about you. And we're going to talk about the three-part method for building calm on purpose as a leader, as a husband, and as a father. Just one quick thing before we get into it. If by the end of this episode, I have earned it, if and only if, I want you to hit that subscribe button. That's really the only ask that I have of you today, and I'd rather earn your subscribe than have to ask for it twice. This is Fire Forge Leader for those who refuse to drift in the mirror, in their marriage, in their fatherhood, in their business, and in their mission. I'm Steve Baumgartner, your host. Let's begin. It was 2016, maybe even late 2015. I don't even really know anymore. But one of the buildings that I was responsible for maintaining, it caught fire. It was a small fire, it was a contained fire, but it was a real fire, not a drill, not a hypothetical situation. At this point in time, I was the maintenance manager on site, which meant in that moment, I was the guy who was also responsible for that response. You know, and I call 911, obviously. That's not optional, it's not a judgment call. But the thing is dispatch takes time to arrive on scene. And a fire, it doesn't wait for anybody to get there. So before anyone else gets there, I've got a team and it's already moving. With the right gear, people in the right positions, and people know what their job is in that specific kind of chaos because we train on this. And I'm leading that team. The radios are chiming in. Smoke is where smoke shouldn't be. There's heat that you can feel through the wall before you even get to the source of the fire. And every second is stacking on top of each other. One stacking on the last one. Decisions had to be made that couldn't wait for me to feel confident about them. And everyone around me, every single person on that team is watching how I'm carrying that stress. Whether I speak a single word about it or not. That's a part that people miss about leadership under pressure. Nobody reads your mind. They're reading your face. They're reading your pace. And they're reading your voice. That's the only data that your team has in that moment. I remember making calls in the middle of it that I didn't have time to feel good or bad about. You know, which doors do we seal off? Who goes where? When do we pull back versus push forward? There's no time to second guess any of it out loud because the second that I look unsure, there's 6 other people right behind me who would have been unsure. So we handled it. The fire's out, nobody's hurt, and that could have been the whole story right there. There was a small fire, the team handled it, we moved on. But afterward, the safety manager, he pulls me aside and he tells me that I remind him of a character from Seinfeld, Putty of all people. The boyfriend character, the guy who never lost his cool no matter what Elaine threw at him. She could be screaming, crying, breaking up with him in the mid-sentence. It didn't matter. He just stayed exactly the same. Now, if you know the show, Putty wasn't exactly the guy that you'd hold up as the standard for anything. Plenty of episodes, he was the punchline, not the hero. He was kind of oblivious, kind of a fool half the time. So I'm standing there a little bit bewildered. And I'm honestly trying to figure out if that was actually a compliment or if the safety manager was tearing me down. So I just asked him straight. I said, why? Why does that character remind you of me? He said it plainly, like it was obvious to him, even if it wasn't obvious to me. He said something I've never forgotten. He said, because people will follow you anywhere. He said it's because no matter what happens, you don't get stressed out. You don't lose your calm. You keep your head in the middle of genuinely stressful situations. And people see that. They see your leadership in it. They see strength in it. They see courage in it. And somewhere in watching you do that, they can also find a version of that same thing in themselves. Now, is that true in every single case? No, absolutely not. And I'll be honest about that. Calm alone doesn't make you a good leader. And there are plenty of calm men who aren't leading anyone anywhere. Calm without competence, it's a man who's probably pleasant to be around, but he solves nothing. But it taught me something real that day. How much power there actually is in staying steady when everything around you says you shouldn't be. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I'm at a client site. The plant manager there is a genuinely good guy. I actually like this guy a lot, but he's in his first real leadership role. He came straight out of engineering. Someone saw potential in him and they gave him a shot. And there's nothing wrong with that. Every new leader needs coaching. And this is exactly the kind of thing I get the pleasure of doing when I consult. My whole objective with these teams is to build people who don't need me in their plant forever. So the teams are working, they're working through a real problem. The kind of problem that doesn't have one simple, obvious answer. It's the kind where you actually want multiple people in the room that are pressure testing ideas out loud. And this plant manager, he keeps stepping in and he keeps voicing his opinion, which is fine. That's his role. That's part of the job. But every time that someone pushed back or offered a different angle, he argued his point instead of actually hearing it. And he gets a little bit agitated. And nothing dramatic, nothing anyone would flag in a report, but real enough that you can feel it totally shift the air in the room. And he feels like they're not listening to him. So he pushes harder, which makes them lean back instead of lean in. And in real time, you can watch him lose this entire room. Not because he's wrong, far from that, because he's not calm. And everyone in that room could feel that. Now, after the second time I watched it happen, I pulled this young leader aside. Not in front of his team, of course. It was just the two of us in his office. And I talked to him about something that I want to give you right now. The same thing I told him that day. Even when you already know the answer, especially when you already know the answer, stay calm and ask questions instead of asserting your answers. Get people thinking instead of handing them your pre-drawn conclusion. The second that you stop being calm, it turns into micromanagement. And the second that it becomes micromanagement, people stop believing in the system because now it's your way and not our way. Now, there's the same pressure as that fire. If you really look at it, the same stakes in its own way. You have a room full of people that are now watching their leader and how he carries himself under strain. And they're deciding in real time whether this is a man that's worth following or simply a man that they're going to tolerate. Opposite responses, opposite outcomes, and the only variable that changed between those two rooms was simply the calm. Now I want you to picture the other version of that room, the version where this plant manager stays calm. He has all the same disagreements. He has all the same pushbacks from his team. He has the same pressure to be right. But instead of arguing his point louder, he asks one more question. And the room, it doesn't deflate now. He gets his team to start to lean in. People who start offering better ideas, not going to defense mode on their first ones. And it's all due to nobody's bracing for the fight anymore. It's the same problem, the same amount of experience in the room with a completely different result. And the only thing that changed was his temperature when he walked in the room. Here's the reframe that I need you to sit with. Calm, it's not the absence of pressure. It's what everyone around you is running on when they've got nothing left of their own. And there's some real psychology behind that as well. It's not just a nice sentiment. Psychologists actually call this emotional contagion. You don't just influence the mood in a room, you as a leader set its baseline. Researchers studying this in leadership have actually measured it. They've used brain activity, not just surveys and feel niceties and all that stuff, but actual brain activity. And they found something striking. When a group has a leader, that leader's emotional state sinks into the people around them far more than the room's state sinks back into the leader. That was a mouthful, but think about that. That leader's emotional state sinks into the room more than the entire room sinks into that leader's. It's not a two-way street. It runs downhill from the top down. Whether that leader is the plant manager, a father, a mother, a maintenance guy, or that maintenance guy leading the fire response, your nervous system becomes the entire room's nervous system, whether you meant for it to be or not. And it's not abstract. It's the reason a calm doctor that delivers hard news cringes about how a family receives it, and how a panicked one makes the same news feel like the end of the world. Calm is absolutely contagious, but so is panic. So is anxiety, irritability, whatever emotions you walked in carrying. The only question that actually matters is which one are you going to spread? That's not decided by your circumstances. It's not decided by the traffic on the way into work, your bad night of sleep, or anything else. It's decided by you, the leader, in the moment that you walk through the door. Proverbs puts it better than I can. In Proverbs it states, "He that is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he that ruleth his spirit than he that taketh a city." He that is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he that ruleth his spirit than he that taketh a city. Self-government before household government. Self-government before team government. Self first. Everyone else second. Not because the people around you don't matter, but because they're going to catch whatever you're carrying as the leader, whether you hand it to them on purpose or not. Here's the three-part method underneath both of those stories. I'm going to call it the I method. And I isn't just a word that I liked. It's the eye of the storm. The calm center that doesn't move no matter how hard everything around it is spinning. This isn't just for fires, and it isn't just for the plant floor. The same three moves, whether the room's on fire or the room in your own kitchen table. Picture correcting your wife about something that actually needs correcting. Something real. Something that needs to be said. You can come at her with accusation and heated. "How could you say that?" Or you could come at her calmly and say something like, "Hey, honey, the other day we were talking about this, and I want to revisit it." And it's the same correction, but you get a completely different outcome because the one thing that needed to change changed. Now picture one of your kids in mid-meltdown. I got a son, Dominic. You've heard about him a lot. He is wired hot, and we've talked about this before. And he always has been, since he was tiny. And when he's in full-blown panic, when he's genuinely frantic, nothing rational reaches him. The single best thing that I can do for that boy in that moment, it's not to match his energy. It's to reach out, pull him in, hold him, and be the eye of the storm for that boy of mine. and show them physically in that moment what calm actually looks like. I could escalate right along with them. I could escalate everything, right? I could get angry. I could yell. I could scream. All of that. And don't get me wrong, sometimes that happens. But what it does is it escalates that moment every single time. Instead